It's an emergency. God says, open this right now. Do not ignore this moment, because heaven is trying to get your attention before the next shift in your life begins. Chosen one, this message is not here to entertain you. It is here to awaken you. You have been praying for change, asking God for breakthrough, crying out for peace, clarity, restoration, and movement in areas that have felt delayed for too long. But the Lord is saying that before the door opens, something must end. Before the lifting comes, something draining your spirit must be confronted. There is a pattern in your life that you have called small, tolerated in secret, or pushed aside for another day, and that very thing has been stealing strength from you little by little. God is not exposing it to condemn you. He is exposing it to free you. What has been weakening you cannot follow you into the next season. What has been feeding confusion cannot go where God is bringing clarity. What has been draining your peace cannot remain where God is releasing purpose. This is why the pressure has felt so intense. This is why the battle has been so personal. The enemy does not fight what is empty. He fights what carries oil, purpose, and spiritual weight. There is something on your life that threatens darkness, and that is why compromise has been trying to stay close to you. But today, God is calling you higher. He is calling you to become honest, alert, and willing to let go of anything that has been quietly pulling you away from His best. 1 Peter 5-8 says, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. This is your instruction for this hour." Stay watchful over your heart, your habits, your environment, and your spirit. Stop delaying what God has already made clear. Stop making peace with what has been fighting your growth. This is your moment to respond with obedience. If this word is speaking directly to your spirit, comment 777 right now and declare, "I will obey God immediately." You were not set apart by God to live exhausted, scattered, and constantly emptied by things that do not carry His breath on them. There is a reason your spirit has felt heavy lately, and it is not because you are weak. It is because too much of your strength has been flowing into places that were never assigned to build you. Heaven is exposing what has been draining you, not to condemn you, but to rescue you before the loss becomes greater. Some things do not destroy a person in one violent moment. They wear them down little by little. They steal hunger. They weaken focus. They dull discernment. They leave the soul restless and the mind noisy. That is why this word is so serious. God is showing you that what you have called harmless, private, manageable, or temporary has been costing more than you realized. Every distraction, every compromise, every pattern that keeps pulling you away from prayer, discipline, stillness, and obedience has been taking strength out of your spirit. And when spiritual strength leaks, clarity goes with it. Peace goes with it. Boldness goes with it. The fire to pursue purpose begins to flicker, and the person who was meant to move with authority starts living in hesitation. That is not your portion. That is not the life heaven wrote over you. You were called to carry weight, not confusion. You were called to release light, not constantly battle the fog created by your own open doors. C.S. Lewis understood something deeply in mere Christianity. Faith is not meant to leave a life disordered. It is meant to bring the whole person under truth, under alignment, under the rule of what is eternal rather than what is impulsive. And that is exactly what God is doing with you now. He is bringing your life back into order. He is putting His finger on the places where your energy has been misused, because what He placed inside you is too valuable to be wasted on cycles that lead nowhere. You have been asking God for increase, but increase cannot rest on a life that keeps pouring itself into what is empty. You have been asking for elevation, but elevation requires separation from what weakens your spirit. This is why the Lord is confronting the drain before He releases the next dimension. He is not delaying you out of cruelty. He is protecting what He is building in you. He is teaching you that your energy is sacred, your focus is sacred, Your obedience is sacred, and your next season will require all three. So do not ignore the conviction. Do not silence what God is revealing. This is the hour to recognize what has been depleting you. Shut the door on it without mercy, and begin to live like someone whose life is no longer available for waste. What has been fighting your life is not always loud. Sometimes it comes quietly. Sometimes it comes in the form of a private appetite, a hidden compromise, a pattern you return to when you are tired, lonely, disappointed, or emotionally overwhelmed. That is what makes this so dangerous. The thing threatening your future may not look dramatic on the outside, but in the spirit, it has been leaving damage behind. It has been feeding what should be starving and starving what should be strong. It has been strengthening the wrong voice inside you. And now God is addressing it directly. Because if He does not interrupt this cycle, it will keep eating away at your discernment, your focus, your confidence, and your spiritual authority, one small surrender at a time. Do not underestimate this battle. This is not just about a bad habit. This is not just about weakness. This is not just about you having a hard week or a tired mind. This is about a war over your appetite, your attention, your purity, your direction, and your calling. The enemy does not always try to destroy a person in public. Many times he works in secret, in repetition, in silence, in the places no one claps for and no one sees. He studies the door you leave open. He watches the pattern you keep excusing. He waits for the moment when your emotions are low and your guard is down. Then he offers you something immediate, something easy, something private, something that feels like relief for a moment but leaves your spirit emptier than before. That is why this must be taken seriously now. Because every time you feed what is fighting your calling, you make the next battle harder. Every time you normalize what God is convicting, your heart becomes a little less sensitive. Every time you return to the same chain, you teach your soul to expect captivity. And that is not who you are. You were not marked by God to be ruled by urges, by impulses, by secret cycles, by emotional escapes, or by temporary pleasures that leave permanent weakness behind. You were called to carry glory, but glory cannot rest where compromise is constantly being entertained. You were called to move in authority, but authority weakens when your inner life is divided. You were called to hear God clearly, but clarity becomes difficult when your spirit is crowded by what should have been cast down long ago. 1 Peter 5-8 says, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." This is not poetry alone. This is a warning. Scripture is showing you that there is an active enemy, and he is not casual about your destruction. He is patient, he is observant, he is strategic, and because he cannot erase the calling on your life, he tries to wear you down until you stop walking like the person God said you are. But today, heaven is cutting through the fog. God is exposing the pattern because he loves you too much to let you keep bleeding in private while pretending you are still strong in public. He is exposing the thing that comforts your flesh but cripples your spirit. He is naming the battle because he intends to give you power over it. So this is the moment to stop protecting what has been poisoning your progress. Stop defending what keeps pulling you backward. Stop making peace with the very thing that has been stealing your fire. The issue is serious because your destiny is serious. The warfare is intense because the calling is real. And the reason this word feels sharp is that God is not whispering to your comfort right now. He is speaking to the part of you that must rise before the next season opens. Be honest before the Lord. What has been draining your spirit lately? What have you kept feeding that you now know has been fighting your future? If you are done with the cycle, comment, "I shut the door," and let that be your public declaration that what has tormented you in secret will not go with you into the next place God is preparing. Discipline is not God trying to reduce your joy. Discipline is God teaching you how to protect what hell has been trying to access. That is why this part of your journey feels so serious. The Lord is not merely telling you to stop certain things. He is teaching you how to govern yourself with power, because the next level of your calling cannot be carried by a life that is ruled by impulse. You cannot walk in spiritual authority while being dragged around by every feeling, every urge, every craving, every emotional wave, and every sudden desire for relief. God is not calling you into a fragile life. He is calling you into a governed life, a guarded life, a life with structure, focus, and holy restraint. And yes, that sounds sharp, but it is mercy. Because when a person has no discipline, they become easy to interrupt, easy to distract, easy to seduce away from what matters most. They keep losing ground, not always because they are evil, but because they are unguarded. They keep delaying purpose, not always because they do not care, but because they have not learned how to say no to what is draining their strength in the moment. But the Lord is changing that now. He is calling you into a season where your spirit leads, not your cravings, where your convictions speak louder than your moods, where your private choices begin to match the greatness of what has been spoken over your life. This is where many people misunderstand the ways of God. They think self-control is punishment. They think restraint is bondage. They think discipline is a loss. But what if discipline is actually deliverance? What if the boundaries God is calling you into are not cages, but walls of protection around your anointing? What if the routines you have resisted are the very things that would stabilize your mind, strengthen your spirit, restore your focus, and make your next season sustainable? C.S. Lewis understood how subtle spiritual sabotage can be in the Screwtape Letters. The enemy does not always need to destroy a soul with one massive fall if he can keep that soul drifting through small permissions, repeated compromise, and slow spiritual dullness. That is why discipline matters so much. It closes the small doors before they become major entrances. It interrupts the drift. It teaches your soul how to stay awake. It trains your life to move in agreement with truth instead of reacting to whatever pressure shows up that day. And that is exactly what God is demanding from you now. Not perfection, but government. Not performance, but alignment. Not empty religion, but holy order. He is calling you to become consistent in prayer, intentional with your time, careful with your thoughts, guarded with your energy, and serious about what you allow to shape your inner world. Because once discipline begins to rise in you, confusion begins to lose its hold. Once discipline begins to rise in you, temptation no longer finds the same easy access. Once discipline begins to rise in you, your spirit starts to stand up with strength again. So do not resist this call to order. Do not keep romanticizing chaos. Do not keep excusing the lack of structure that has been leaving you vulnerable. God is not trying to control you like a tyrant. He is trying to establish you like a warrior. And a warrior who cannot govern himself will never be able to carry the weight of what heaven is about to place in his hands. There are moments when the most spiritual thing you can do is stop moving, stop reaching, stop reacting, stop trying to outrun the ache in your own soul long enough to hear what God has been saying beneath all the noise. You have been surrounded by so much pressure, so many voices, so many inner battles, so many silent expectations, that somewhere along the way you forgot what it feels like to be still before the one who made you. But heaven is calling you back now, not into passivity, not into avoidance, but into sacred stillness. Because some chains are not broken by doing more, some confusion is not lifted by trying harder, some answers do not come through noise, speed, and constant motion. They come when the room gets quiet enough for truth to finally land. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." That is not a gentle decoration for peaceful moments. That is a command in the middle of turmoil. It is a holy interruption. It is God telling you to step out of panic, step out of striving, Step out of the frantic need to fix everything at once and come back into His presence where your spirit can breathe again. You have been carrying more than you admit. You have smiled while tired, kept going while empty, and pushed through days when your heart was begging for silence. And because you kept moving, you did not notice how deeply your soul had begun to scatter. But God noticed. He saw the hidden exhaustion. He saw the pressure behind your smile. He saw the way your inner world had become crowded with fear, distraction, self-protection, and emotional noise. And now He is not merely inviting you to rest. He is calling you to return. Return to the place where your thoughts slow down. Return to the place where your heart stops performing. Return to the place where you no longer need to impress, explain, defend, or prove anything. Because in stillness, masks fall. In stillness, excuses lose power. In stillness, the truth about what you have become starts to rise, and the truth about who God is becomes bigger than the chaos you have been living in. This is why the enemy fights your quiet so aggressively. He knows that if you ever become truly still before God, you will hear clearly again. You will see what has been draining you. You will recognize what has been pulling you off course. You will recover the sensitivity that distraction has been trying to numb. So do not fear the silence. Do not run from the quiet places anymore. They are not empty. God is waiting for you there. When was the last time you were truly still before Him, without rushing, without noise, without pretending? If you know heaven has been calling you back into quiet, comment, "Be still," and let that be your sign that your soul is ready to return to the place where God speaks clearest. What has been holding you back has not always looked like fear, and that is why it has been so effective. It did not always come to you with trembling, with obvious panic, or with a voice that said, "Be afraid." Many times it came disguised as caution, disguised as waiting, disguised as wisdom, disguised as you needing a little more time. But beneath all of it, there has been a deeper struggle. You have been standing in front of doors God was ready to open, yet something in you kept hesitating. You have felt the pull to move, the conviction to obey, the stirring to step forward, but then another voice rose up and whispered, "Not yet, not now, maybe later, maybe when you feel stronger, maybe when you are more prepared, maybe when there is less risk, less uncertainty, less exposure." That voice has sounded reasonable, but it has been costing you more than you know, because fear does not need to scream to control a life. It only needs to delay obedience long enough for doubt to settle in. It only needs to keep a person circling the same mountain until hesitation begins to feel normal, and that is exactly what God is confronting now. You have called it caution, but some of it has been captivity. You have called it discernment, but some of it has been self-protection. You have called it being realistic, but some of it has been the quiet refusal to believe that the God who called you will also sustain you. This is why the Spirit is speaking so directly in this moment. Because fear has been stealing from you while pretending to help you. It has kept you small and called it safety. It has kept you silent and called it humility. It has kept you waiting and called it preparation. But heaven is pulling the mask off. Fear is not your protector. Fear is a thief. It steals movement, steals confidence, steals timing, steals clarity, and steals the holy boldness that belongs to those who know who walks with them. 2 Timothy 1-7 says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear but of power and love and self-control." That means the fear ruling your thoughts did not come from God. The paralysis in your spirit did not come from God. The constant shrinking back did not come from God. Power came from Him. Love came from Him. Self-control came from Him. So if fear has been sitting on your chest, tightening your thoughts, and convincing you that retreat is wisdom, then you must stop agreeing with it today. This is not the hour to keep negotiating with what God already commanded you to overcome. The Lord is not asking you to feel ready before you obey. He is asking you to trust Him enough to move while your knees are still shaking. Because courage in the kingdom is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that fear will not be given final authority. And once you make that decision, something shifts. Chains begin to weaken, your vision begins to clear, your soul begins to remember that you were not built to live hidden behind excuses. You were built to advance. You were built to stand. You were built to move when God speaks, even when your flesh wants to run backward. So hear this clearly. Stop bowing to the fear that has been masquerading as wisdom. Stop giving spiritual language to what has really been unbelief. Stop waiting for a safer moment than the one God has already sanctified with His word. This is your hour to rise with trembling if necessary, but to rise anyway, because the miracle is not waiting on a less fearful version of you. It is waiting on your obedience now. You have spent too much time measuring yourself through eyes that did not create you. You have lowered your voice to make other people comfortable. You have questioned what God placed inside you because someone else did not recognize it, did not affirm it, did not celebrate it, or did not understand it. And without even realizing it, you began to hand over pieces of your confidence to people who were never given authority over your identity. That is one of the deepest traps of the enemy. He knows he does not always need to destroy your calling directly if he can just make you depend on human approval to feel secure in it. Because once your peace is tied to other people's reactions, your strength becomes unstable. If they praise you, you feel lifted. If they ignore you, you feel diminished. If they misunderstand you, you begin to question yourself. If they reject you, you start shrinking back from the very thing God told you to do. But the Lord is breaking that cycle now. He is teaching you to stop seeking proof from people who did not write your destiny. He is teaching you to stop begging for confirmation from voices that were never meant to be louder than His. The truth is, some people will never understand what is on your life because they do not have the capacity to discern what heaven placed on you. Some will only recognize what is familiar, ordinary, easy to explain. But your life was never meant to fit neatly into what other people can explain. You were marked by God, and that means there will be seasons when your obedience looks strange, your separation looks excessive, and your convictions look uncomfortable to those who only understand surface things. But that does not make you wrong. It means you must become rooted deeper in the approval of God than in the opinions of people. The moment you stop needing applause to obey, your spirit becomes dangerous again. The moment you stop waiting for validation to move, boldness begins to rise. The moment you accept that heaven's yes over your life is greater than man's confusion, you begin to walk with a steadiness the enemy cannot easily shake. So stop looking sideways. Stop shrinking because others cannot see what God showed you. Stop asking people to bless what God already anointed. Their silence does not cancel your assignment, and their doubt does not erase your calling. Your past has been speaking too loudly for too long, and God is silencing it now. Not because it never happened, not because the wounds were imaginary, not because the failures were small, but because what happened to you is not allowed to become the name you answer to for the rest of your life. Some of you have been carrying old versions of yourself like chains around your neck. You remember who you were when you were broken, who you were when you fell, who you were when you made choices you regret, who you were when you were desperate, ashamed, confused, impulsive, or spiritually numb. And even though you kept moving on the outside, part of your soul stayed trapped in that old room. Part of you still sees yourself through the lens of your worst season. Part of you still believes the pain had the final word. But hear the Lord clearly. Your pain was real, but it was never ordained to define you. Your failure was real, but it was never crowned with authority over your future. Your history may explain some wounds, but it does not own your identity. That is why the enemy works so hard to keep bringing up what God already called finished. He knows that if he can keep you tied to shame, he can keep you from walking boldly. If he can keep you staring backward, he can keep you hesitating at the threshold of what is next. If he can make you believe you are still the person from your most broken chapter, then he can keep you living beneath the level of grace that has already been released over your life. But the Lord is breaking that lie now. You are not the name they called you in your lowest season. You are not the mistake that still makes you cringe in private. You are not the weakness that once ruled your thoughts. You are not the version of yourself that existed before God confronted you, preserved you, carried you, and brought you through the fire. The blood of Jesus does not cover you halfway. It speaks fully. It redeems fully. It restores fully. So stop rehearsing what heaven has already forgiven. Stop reopening graves God already closed. Stop treating old shame like it still has legal access to your mind. Your past may be a chapter, but it is not your conclusion. God is not asking you to pretend nothing happened. He is commanding you to stop bowing to what no longer has power over you. What have you been carrying that God already told you to release? If you are ready to move forward, comment, "My past is not my future." And let that be your declaration that the old story will not decide the next season of your life. You have spent enough years making yourself smaller so that other people would not feel uncomfortable around what God placed on your life. You have dimmed your language, softened your convictions, hidden your depth, and restrained your fire just to avoid being misunderstood, rejected, talked about, or left alone. But this is the truth. Heaven is pressing into your spirit now. You were never anointed to play small. You were never called, preserved, corrected, and carried by God just so you could spend your life shrinking to fit rooms He never designed to hold you. What God placed inside you is not common, and the reason your life has felt so intense at times is that the calling on it is not ordinary. There is a weight to your assignment. There is a reach to your voice. There is a seriousness to your purpose that cannot keep living under the ceiling of fear, false humility, and self-reduction. Some of you have mistaken hiding for wisdom. Some of you have mistaken silence for maturity. Some of you have mistaken making other people comfortable for being loving. But when God has marked a person, playing small is no longer innocent. It becomes disobedience. Because every time you bury what heaven gave you, people who were supposed to be helped by your obedience remain waiting. Every time you silence what God told you to say, darkness gets more room than it should have had. Every time you pretend to be less than what God made you, the enemy gains satisfaction from a theft he did not even have to fight hard for. He only had to convince you to reduce yourself. But that ends now. The Lord is confronting the version of you that learned to survive by staying hidden. He is confronting the pattern of apologizing for the very thing He sanctified. He is confronting the fear that taught you to edit your strength until you became easier for others to digest. God did not set you apart so you could blend in with the crowd. He did not wake you up spiritually so you could go back to living half awake. He did not pull you through warfare after warfare just for you to arrive at this moment and still act like your light needs permission to shine. You are not here to be explained by everyone. You are not here to be approved by everyone. You are not here to be made smaller until people stop feeling convicted by your boldness, your separation, your depth, and your calling. You are here to obey. You are here to stand. You are here to carry what was entrusted to you without shame. So stop minimizing the mantle. Stop choking down the fire. Stop lowering your life to match environments that were never sent to define you. The season of shrinking is over. The season of holy boldness has begun. And if your obedience makes some people uncomfortable, let them be uncomfortable. Better that than standing before God one day, knowing you spent your life hiding what heaven commanded you to release. Too much has already been lost to delay. Too much peace, too much momentum, too much clarity, too much strength has already been swallowed by hesitation, excuses, second-guessing, and the constant promise that you would deal with it later. But later has been expensive, and heaven is confronting that spirit of delay now. Because one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a person with a real calling is not always rebellion in the loud sense. Sometimes it is procrastination dressed up as thoughtfulness. Sometimes it is a delay dressed up as caution. Sometimes it is disobedience wrapped in the language of timing, wisdom, and I am still waiting for confirmation. But how much more confirmation do you need when God has already been convicting you again and again? How many more signs do you need when your spirit has already been disturbed every time you try to ignore what He said? There comes a point when delay stops being uncertainty and starts becoming resistance. There comes a point when waiting is no longer spiritual maturity and becomes a quiet refusal to move. And the Lord is saying that point has already been reached for many of you. You know what you need to cut off. You know what door needs to be shut. You know what habit has to die. You know what fear has been coddled for too long. You know what act of obedience has been postponed while you keep hoping the burden to do it will somehow disappear. But it will not disappear because it came from God. And what comes from God does not dissolve just because it is inconvenient. It follows you. It presses on you. It returns in the night. It rises in your spirit when the room gets quiet. Why? Because your next season is attached to your obedience, and heaven will not let you rest comfortably in a place you were only supposed to pass through. Stop settling for a lower life just because it is familiar. Stop accepting a watered-down version of your future because it demands less courage. Stop making peace with a level of compromise, passivity,